It's the early 1940s, the whole world is angry at Germany for being naughty, and you've agreed to help dish out some of the punishment. You happen to have good eyes and not the worst reflexes, so you decide to become a pilot for the US Air Force, being designated for the B-17 Flying Fortress. One fateful evening, you're tasked with flying over Germany and dropping a load of things that go bang out of your bomb bay doors before flying home. You complete your mission, almost getting made alivant from the number of things coming after you, but you're fine. You finally see the shores of England and eventually the runway you're set to land on. You line up with it, flipping the landing gear switch, and you crash the plane. Idiot. This exact scenario happened nearly 400 times, with each instance pilots being forced to take responsibility.
I blame you.
Before the Air Force decided to get some psychiatrists to interview some of the surviving pilots to see if they could figure out what went wrong. They all said they were pretty certain that they'd gone through the correct procedure before landing. But after examining the B-17's cockpit, they saw this. You see, this is the switch for the landing gear. You know, it drops the landing gear. And this is the switch for the flaps. Basically, they make the wings bigger and generate more lift so you could land and take off on shorter runways. But since they were right next to each other and identical, a lot of exhausted pilots would get a little bit confused and end up slamming the B-17 into the ground with no gear. Great job, designers. The switches were changed to be further apart from one another while adding a gear to the landing gear switch and a smooth handle for the flap switch, a trend you see on pretty much all aircraft today. We are not an animal built for using tools perfectly, nor making them perfectly for the animal that creates them. But thanks to this mistake, everything was subsequently designed with humans in mind all the time and we had no problems whatsoever.
Foreshadowing is a literary device in which...
It's the year 2000, your name is Teresa Laporte, and you've been chosen as the election supervisor for Palm Beach County, Florida, to help decide who's going to run, the most powerful nation on the planet. One of your responsibilities is to design the ballot, and to save on paper and ink, you create a punch card as a way of selecting votes. This year there were 13 candidates, so you created a butterfly design with the punch holes down the middle. As you can see, it's a bit of a mess. Like, is this hole for Reform or Democrat? I don't know, and with Palm Beach being made up of mostly short-sighted retirees, they had no idea either. For example, if they came up to the ballot with Al Gore in mind, they might accidentally punch for Reform, and if they even realised their error at all, they might re-punch for Democrat, spoiling their ballot. It was so bad that Palm Beach County had 3 times as many as votes for Reform and invalid ballots as other counties in Florida. Normally this would be no biggie, just fix it for the next year. But in the Bush versus Al Gore race, the votes of Palm Beach were the deciding factor in the whole election, with, spoiler alert, Bush winning by only 513 Floridian votes. And to put into perspective the effect that the butterfly ballot actually had, when examining cards with a partially punched Reform hole and a fully punched Democrat hole after the election, Gore had actually won by about 60 votes. However, this wasn't accepted by the electorate and Bush won, becoming the 43rd president of the United States, and one of its worst, with the second lowest presidential approval rate, only beaten out by Nixon, causing, well...
Now watch subscribe.
But, okay, I swear, after this, everything was designed with people in mind, no more. It's January 16th, 2003, and Space Shuttle Columbia, designated STS-107, is accelerating at 3,000 miles an hour, with a mission aim of researching how life could develop in zero gravity. When, at 61 seconds into the flight, a chunk of foam breaks off the solid fuel tank, striking the leading edge of the left wing of the shuttle. Nothing exploded, so no biggie, NASA thought, but there was some worry that the wing could have been damaged. Though this worry was quickly squashed, in part due to this presentation that was shown to higher-ups on the likelihood that the spray-on foam insulation, or SOFI, could damage the heat-insulating carbon tiles that line the wings, preventing the shuttle from burning upon re-entry. Notice this section here. Isolating the main heading, it makes sense why they weren't worried. I mean, it's like describing the damage a pillow could do to an M1 Abrams. Combine that with the confidence of the engineers who designed the tiles, denoting them as practically indestructible, and you get overconfidence only rivaled by your dad at a karaoke night. But if you look down one row, the subheading reveals, oh wait, it could do that damage. And you get a similar problem here at the bottom, pointing out that they only tested a piece of foam 3 cubic cubic inches in volume, whereas the foam ramp that actually broke off that they were concerned about was 640 times larger. Though it's likely that the NASA higher-ups didn't even notice those subheadings. I mean, you imagine being one of those guys, having to process so much information every day, only the most attention-grabbing elements are going to get viewed as important and be remembered. So in a piece of tile shattered as a result of the foam strike on Columbia, the idea that it had even occurred was largely ignored, and on re-entry, the internals of the left wing melted due to the friction generated by the shuttle re-entering the atmosphere, causing it to break off, and subsequently the whole shuttle would burn up, killing all on board. But I swear, 100%, like this time, that was it. Why are we like this? Why can't we see the shoe on the other foot? Even when it's for war or for country or for the beyond, we can't seem to put ourselves in the perspective of the person in front of us. We throw things together because we understand them, not because the person it's getting passed off to will. I don't know if you've heard of a theory of mind. It's the ability to see the world from a different perspective. Originally tested in toddlers by moving a doll around some scenery and asking which photo would best match the doll's perspective. For example, this doll would see this image and not these. Little humans tend to gain this ability between the ages of 5 and 6, but it feels like we never gain it on a meaning level and only on a strictly basic perceptual level. So when little humans inevitably become big humans, we get shit like this, this, and this. So to me, it's a wonder and a miracle we've got this far. We've somehow shithoused our way to this point, and I'm pretty invested in seeing where it goes next. So